What is it that you'd like to hand down to the next generation? You know, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, they desire to pass on a legacy to their children and future generations. Lots of times, families want to pass down generational wealth, or maybe they want to keep a particular occupation within a family. But this morning, I want us to think about what's the most important thing to hand down to the next generation. We see this in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 5. Paul is writing this letter to Timothy, and he says, "When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee." When Paul thought of Timothy, Paul's locked up in prison. He's thinking of Timothy, and he's praying for him. Timothy is carrying on the ministry out there to the churches while Paul is locked up. And he says, when he remembers Timothy's unfeigned faith, unfeigned means not faked. In other words, genuine. Timothy was a man who loved Jesus, who trusted Jesus, and his faith was the genuine article. And so he says, "When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded that in thee also." Timothy is a third generation believer. His grandmother was a believer. His mother was a believer. And Timothy was a believer. Now, that is the kind of legacy that you and I should desire to pass on. Something that's worth handing down to the next generation. He goes on in 2 Timothy and chapter 3 and verse 14, and he tells him, he says, "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus." Timothy's grandmother and his mother taught him the Bible. And he says, I want you to remember these things, and I want you to remember who you learned them from. As Timothy was growing up, the Bible was read in his home. Jesus was served in his home. He was instructed in following Christ, and that wore off on him. You know, a Christian home should be a place where it's really, really hard not to get saved in. That should be our goal. For those of us who have children and grandchildren, we should pray for those little ones. We should teach those little ones. We should model for those little ones. We should live a life of following Jesus that is contagious, that as they observe us, they realize that our faith is the genuine article, and that they have a desire to love and serve Jesus as well. I just want to encourage you today. Timothy became a believer as a young man, and then God called him into the ministry. And as a result of that, Paul is writing this letter to encourage Timothy, even though he's got some things that he might want to be discouraged about. The fact that Paul, his mentor, is in jail, and he's not going to get out this time. That's Paul's last letter that he will write. But he's encouraging Timothy to continue in those things that he knows, and to stay in the scriptures, and to be encouraged by the Holy Scriptures, because he's known them since he was a kid, and those things are able to make you wise. The scriptures, the Bible, are able to make you wise unto salvation through faith that's in Christ Jesus. Of all the things that you and I could hand down to the next generation, a love of Jesus, a faith in Jesus, a walk with Jesus is by far the most important. So I want to encourage you this morning, let's do that. Let's hand down that to the next generations. God bless you. Have a great day.